Good evening, and welcome to the Single Market special of Question Time. Tonight, we have the former leader of the opposition, WasUp008, the Green Party's Europe spokesperson, Zukov236, the deputy leader of the Classical Liberals, Twisted Nuke, and a high-profile member of the Conservative Party, Toast in Russian.
Yay! Toast in Russian.
And don't forget that you, of course, at home can engage with the episode by using the hashtag on Twitter, MBBCQT, to have your say and get involved. Our first question tonight comes from Agent Nola. Agent Nola, the man in the spectacles there.
Thank you. Many would claim that the single market represents an open relationship with Europe and freedom, whether that be economic freedom or social freedom. Would you agree? And if not, what does it represent?
And our first response comes from the panellist Twisted Nuke.
Well, no, it doesn't. Now, let's give a little context. What is the Norway arrangement? Because we're not getting a Swiss deal. The EU have said no Swiss deals. So staying in the single market means taking the Norway deal. What is the Norway deal? The Norway deal was a transitory mechanism to allow Norway to join the EU. That's why Norway adopts EU law without voting on it. It's to create a pre-accession harmonisation. This means that when Norway, if they were to join, which was the original plan, they would join at a point of regulatory similarity. This stops there being a sudden shock. So what we're talking about joining is we're talking about a mechanism that's supposed to let us join the EU, not leave it, which is a little strange. But it doesn't represent freedom. It represents becoming a vassal state. It represents having our laws made in Brussels. Norway adopts 75% of EU law, and it doesn't get a vote on any of them. It doesn't have any presence on the Commission. Norway takes laws, it doesn't make them. So I can't see why anyone would think this is freedom, because this to me seems like the death of British democracy. Because if we stay in the single market, we'll be taking EU laws, taking EU rules, without having any say on how they're made, without having any kind of veto on them, without, in any practical terms, being able to control our own destiny. I don't see how that's freedom. That sounds like slavery to me.
WasUp008.
Well, absolutely. It keeps an open door with Europe. Europe is our closest trading partner. It is our best trading partner. It is a continent we have a very, very much similarity with in terms of culture. We are trying to shut the door on Europe, and I find this distressing because everyone on the Leave campaign is saying, oh no, they're going to make all our laws if we stay in the single market. 75% of European directives, we're going to take them and we've got no choice in what they are. This is true. However, it is important to look at the fact that the European single market is our biggest trading partner, and the fact that actually to achieve a deal with the European Union is actually quite difficult, even with harmonised laws, even with harmonised rules. Because if someone tries to break up with you in a relationship, you're not going to be nice to them, are you? You're going to get as much out of them as you can. And this is what the European Union will do. We are trying to stay good neighbours with the European Union, and I think that to stay in the single market shows that we are able to put our best foot forward and actually trade with the people closest to us still on the best possible terms.
Zukov236.
All right. Absolutely. I think firstly, it provides many great benefits, such as especially for regions in the UK, such as the Jessica program, which it's extremely helpful to helping urban centers develop. It gives us much better tariff rates. It helps us develop better relations with these nations, and it's also it's just in general a better way to trade than it's a better way to get access to the nations of Europe, and a better way to in my view, it's a good way to have a trade deal with the rest of Europe. It is the best possible option we have right now.
Okay, and finally, Toast in Russian.
Okay, well, let's start by saying, Zukov, you're wrong. You're wrong, and you know you're wrong. Because what the single market is it's basically a free trade deal, which includes us in a club where we must accept laws that we might not even like, and we must accept uncontrolled immigration. I'm not going to get onto immigration just yet, But let me say that the best deal that we could have would be a free trade deal with Europe. This is achievable because we currently have a trading deficit with Europe. We're their largest outside trading partner, and they need us as much as we need them. We need each other, and so therefore, what we need to do is we need to leave the single market, so we don't have to adopt their ridiculous laws made in Brussels. And then we can form a trade deal like normal people because we've got harmonized laws. So it will not take as long as things such as trade deals such as the TPP. We need to leave, and I think Zukov. It's just ridiculous to claim this is the best we've got right now because we're going to get a trade deal. There will be a trade deal. It might be the best we've got at this current time, as in like the precise second, but it's not going to be the best we've got in the future. There will be a better Britain after we leave the single market. There will be a better trade deal. There will be a better trade deal around the world, and there'll be a better deal for the people of this United Kingdom. So I don't accept what Zukov is saying, and I don't accept the question in general.
Can I just come here for a second? What's up? I'd like to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
So, if the EU is going to be so beastly to us when we leave, if they're going to be so difficult and unreasonable, why do you want to go into political union with them? If these people are so unreasonable that when a bad tenant becomes a good neighbour, they're going to be completely unreasonable with us, they're going to refuse to work. Why would we want to go into political union?
Well, because we are not going to be their first priority. Okay,
we're their biggest export market.
Because listen,
we're their biggest export market.
Listen, you can repeat that as much as you like. It's
true.
Yeah,
we are their biggest export market. They sell 60 billion more to us than we sell to them. We are their biggest export market.
I think you should record that and sell it for 99p in a 99p shop. Because
you could sell all your promises there.
Wait a minute. Let me just get it out what I need to say, rather than you go, it's the truth. It's the truth, because that's not very helpful to anybody. So, first of all, okay, every other country has said that their first priority is to get a deal with the European Union. Okay, so our trade deal is not even the first priority of other countries, because the European Union is a massive trading bloc, yeah, and they want their business before ours, because we are a tiny little island in comparison to the rest of Europe, and our growth in the G7 has slowed down to the slowest amount of growth. So we are not the promising trade haven that you seem to think we are. You seem to think we're 20 times the size in terms of our economy than we actually are. We seem to have this bulge of self-importance about who we are. Oh, we're Great Britain. We own a third of the world. We are amazing. You must trade with us. Well, this is not how it's going to be, because other countries, such as Australia, have said, no, we want to deal with the European Union first. We'll deal with you later. So when we don't have a deal with the European Union and we don't have a deal with other countries straight away, like you seem to think we have your crystal ball that you seem to profess to have, which I'd like to see after this program. I'd like to see. It's not going to happen. It's complete folly. Selling people down a river. Also, the other thing is, India had a deal with the UK, and the UK wanted to deal with India, and it turned into just a bilateral investment treaty. So therefore, what basis have you got to say that, oh, everyone wants to trade with us? We're not the kid with all the sweets, so don't make it seem that way. Don't mislead people. You accuse us of misleading people. I think it's you that's doing the misleading. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me explain how trade deals work. You don't have a long list of countries and you say, right, we'll do a deal with America, then we'll do a deal with Argentina, then we'll do a deal with Mexico. That's not how the real world works. What would happen is countries that seriously believe in free trade, when we leave, are going to sit down and say, right, we want to improve our access to your markets. And we'll say, fine, we want to improve our access to your markets. Then we will come to a deal. So this farcical idea that the world's 5th/6th largest economy, depending on how you calculate it, is going to be ignored. That no one's going to want to do a deal with us. No one's going to have free trade because people only apparently want to trade with the EU, the mecca of the world. All praise to the EU. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And even if that's true, staying in the single market doesn't change that, because we will still have left the EU. So if you insist that the only way anyone can do a trade deal with us is through the EU, it won't matter because we're leaving anyway.
EU bargaining power. No. EU bargaining power is much
'cause
higher.
I think we've veered off topic now, because the original question, as it was asked, was, does the single market represent openness, and is that a good thing? And we will have plenty of time, I promise you, to talk about trade agreements afterwards, but I think we need to go back to that original topic, which Agent Nola asked, which was, does the single market represent openness, and is that a good thing? So, for example, immigration. Toast and Russian.
The immigration policy of the single market is ridiculous. I don't think anybody's going to. I don't think any sensible-minded person is going to claim that it's not. It's not racist, and it's not farcical to claim that we need a points-based immigration system, a system that makes Britain better. You know, I'd like to point out an EU publication that came out, I think maybe in 2015, that said after 15 years, 50% of refugees in Germany were unemployed. And I'm not saying that the refugees are bad people or anything like that. I'm just stating the facts. There are large amounts of unemployed people in this country coming in who don't have work lined up for them and who can't speak English. And we need to accept people who are going to provide a benefit for this country, who have work lined up, or who can speak the language. And I think that I know that we can only do this outside the single market. No other club in the world associates the freedom of movement of people with the trading of goods and services to one another. Nothing like that occurs anywhere else in the world, for a good reason, because it doesn't work. Our cities get overcrowded. Look at France. Whole districts have been taken over, and I'm not saying it's a problem because they don't speak French or whatever. I'm saying whole districts are being massively overcrowded, and public transport and the infrastructure links are being overcrowded in France, and it's not working. We need to have a points-based immigration system. We need to think about this logically and not just have some sort of values and ideas in our head, because a vision and values aren't going to build a country. What's going to build a country is good, strong, proper immigration.
Some of that is utter folly. If you look at the figures, no, let me talk, please.
I am looking at the figures.
If you look at the figures, more people come to the UK from outside of the EU than they do from inside the EU. So therefore, your whole idea of stop the immigrants is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong.
I'm not.
20%.
Also, could I point out something? Could I point out something? Could I point out something?
Inside the EU.
Could I point out
more people coming from outside the EU?
Could I point out something?
Common sense.
Could I point out something?
I'd like to. Can I just briefly say something to Emma, please? To what's up? I think that it's pretty ridiculous there to say that, because people are still coming from the EU. Just because it's a smaller number.
Yes, people are coming from the EU, but that's what's the problem? People come from the EU.
That needs to be looked at. Are you going to deny that needs to be looked at?
The borders. We aren't currently in the Schengen area. We aren't currently in the Schengen passport-free area. We retain a lot of borders. Most of not all of the immigrants that come into our country still have to go through border controls. They still have to do a lot of checks.
It's irrelevant.
We can see their passports. That doesn't control immigration.
We're talking about immigration
for sensible immigration control.
Do you not understand?
Asking someone to see their passport isn't immigration control.
I'm also pointing this out. I'm putting this into the debate. The fact that we do have quite some control at our borders. Now you can continue.
Well, we don't.
We do. We're not even the Schengen passport area.
Fair enough, but please be honest about it. There is an open door. Just because we can ask to see someone's passport doesn't mean there's immigration controls. I'm quite happy with freedom of movement personally. The classical liberals support freedom of movement. We want to see it retained, such as the way we have with the Commonwealth. But it should be the right of the British government to decide its immigration policy. It should not be dictated upon high. If the British government is elected on a mandate of controlling immigration, it should be allowed to, rather than being forced not to by the bully boys in Brussels.
But twisted, Nick, I thought it was classical liberal policy to support the fourth freedoms, including...
But we're split on that internally. The single market is a compromise position for the party because we can potentially leave later on, and it's sensible to have a transitory period. We never wanted this referendum, but it's happening now. we have to engage with political reality. In an ideal world, no, we would be at least staying in the single market for the time being, but that's not a possibility, clearly, because of the referendum being forced by the government.
Was that not done through the Direct Democracy Enhancement Act, which your party leader wrote?
Yes, and we've tried to repeal it. We've had a change of heart on the Direct Democracy Act, which is why we've tried to get rid of it.
I'm just going to go quickly back to Mr. Agenola. Which candidates are swaying your argument?
Well, I would say that Emma had some excellent points, and so did Nuke. I think that overall, though, I still stand with Emma.
Okay, so I'm just going to go on to our next member of the audience tonight, Mr. Desert Fox.
Yes. So obviously this referendum is about a lot of things, but one of the most important things this referendum addresses is the economy. And so I wanted to ask you, which side has a stronger case for the economy? If Remain wins or if Leave wins, which scenario is going to give us stronger economic growth?
Zukov 236.
Economic growth. We get a lot of funding from programs that the EU funds. For example, the Jessica program, which I already mentioned, helps urban communities out. We get funding through we get funding through a whole bunch of Scotland gets $30 billion in funding from the EU. So it's definitely very helpful to the economy of Scotland. And the UK as a whole gets much more in funding. Secondly, claims that Leave Camp has repeatedly tried to address this. They've been stating that the economic costs and benefits, especially the deficit, outweigh the economic costs outweigh the benefits, but this is a very weird standpoint, because the study they use, UK gets a budget rebate on the membership fee we send over, which is they claim it's 350 million euros, but actually, because of the budget rebate, which has been growing since 1984, in 2014 the gross figure we've had to pay was $18.8 billion, and it keeps decreasing because of the budget rebate keeps growing. And in fact, the rebate can't be changed in the future without UK's agreement. For economic costs and benefits, a €9,625 figure used by Leave campaigners is based on a study by the Institute of Economic Affairs. And it basically argues that the EU membership reduces the value of the UK economy measured in GDP by about 13%. But this assumes that on leaving the EU, the UK will remove all barriers to trade with the rest of the world and abolish all EU regulations in areas like the environment and the labor market. This may not happen, and if it did, savings may not be this high. For instance, other experts say the UK already has a relatively loose regulated labor market, suggesting that gains from cutting back on EU rules would be small. The calculation also includes some arbitrary and unsubstantiated gains, according to Mr. Portes, such as the claim that the UK contributions to bailing out Eurozone countries have or possibly will cost us 2% of GDP.
Zuko, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You talked about the Jessica funding and generally grants from the EU. Where does that money come from?
The money comes from the EU.
Really? So where does the EU get it from?
The EU
where does the EU budget come from?
The EU gets this funding from nations in order to
including perhaps Britain.
Oh, okay. In fact,
pay more to the EU.
Ordinary British citizens,
yes or no?
Politico. Ordinary British citizens have to pay around 50 cents.
Answer the question.
Does Britain receive more in direct funding from the EU through Objective 1 funding and, of course, Jessica and any other programs you'd like to include than it pays in a membership fee sans rebate?
Yes.
So we pay more than we get. So is it
no? I thought you said it the opposite.
EU funding comes from our money that we are paying for EU programs with our money. Is that true or not?
I thought you were asking the opposite way. I meant no. I said no. Didn't I? Okay. Did I not? I'm sorry. Well, can you repeat that question?
To be fair to Zukoff, he did say we were receiving more than we can, but I just want to turn the conversation now onto whether there's a type of Brexit other than just remaining or full Brexit, which you would be advocating for?
Well, a hard Brexit would be best for the economy because like we said earlier, we are going to get a trade deal with the European Union. That is guaranteed. That is practically guaranteed because of the trade deficit we have with them us being their largest trading partner, and us being for the EU, the kid who they want to sell their sweeties to, as the Countess so put it. Now, if we have a soft Brexit, we're going to have trouble trading with other nations because look at Norway. They have trouble setting up good trade deals. They have trouble setting up reliable trade deals. We're going to be in that situation if we want to tap in to markets outside of Europe, like the Australian coal market and metals market, the New Zealand milk market, or any markets in China or Asia. It's going to be very difficult to do so if we don't leave the single market. If we stay in the single market, not only are we going to have issues with the membership fee, but I'm not going to get onto that. We're going to have to pay. We're going to have to basically pay more for goods than we would outside. Small businesses are going to be hurt by staying in the single market. The soft Brexit idea it's insane. It's basically taking the fact that 60% of people voted to leave, kind of not really liking having to do it, but accepting that we have to leave, and then just trying to do it the easiest, like the least leave way possible. It's just not only is it bad for the economy, it's also disrespectful to the voters, and that's what I don't agree with whatsoever.
Well, would you like to respond to that? Would you like?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. I think I missed half your question. I think you asked a question.
Oh, wait, did I? No, yeah. I was asking Emma if she wanted to respond to that, or if I should.
Well, I'll respond to the question.
Right,
Hard Brexit, soft Brexit, what will do better for the UK? And I believe that, hand on heart, that a soft Brexit will be better. Because you may think this is a silly opinion, like the two gentlemen from the Leave campaign. However, as I said, trade deals we may not get. Trade deals that may take a long time to get. The Leave campaign say we will get these trade deals. They will happen very quickly. But we have to live in a real world where nothing is certain and everything is to play for. For example, this Brexit vote, no one saw it going for Leave. Most people thought it'd be a very, very close Remain. So let's hold up on the whole.
Can I respond to that, please?
Hold on. I would like to add on to what she said. I just want to add on to what she said. Your claim that I believe this has been cited by the Leave campaign regularly. It's a source that shows the deficit and that we have. The fullfactcheck.org actually, fullfact.org, which has also been repeatedly cited as an independent expert source that fact checks these materials. Basically the regulations that they take into account here, the expenses that they take into account, they've been reviewed very rarely. In fact, for example, to the point of many of them being inaccurate. For example, the paper claims that the working time directive costs the UK 4.2 billion euros a year. There's been no evidence since the impact assessment was carried out to support this figure. Many other regulations, there's no real check on these. It's hard to come up with these exact figures once the regulations are also put into place.
Let's take the Working Time Directive, though, as a specific example. Is the Working Time Directive a bad thing? It may cost businesses money, but it is not a bad thing. It is actually good for the workforce. It's actually good for the people in employment because it gives them rights. Yeah, and these rights should be written into British law when we do leave the EU. There are other things to consider. For example, Northern Ireland and Wales are actually net beneficiaries of EU funding. You may say, oh yes, this money does come from the UK government ultimately. However, will that money still be allocated to these schemes that have been well thought out after Brexit? We don't know. We're unsure. So
Well,
yeah.
may I
Also,
point out that you're unsure, Countess, because you're in the opposition. The opposition is going to be unsure. You must ask the Chancellor on that one.
Also, I would like to
one thing, WhatsApp. You do understand that Objective 1 funding applies to EU members, right? Once we're outside of the EU, if we stay in the single market as you want it, we won't be receiving Objective 1 funding from the EU because that's not under EEA competence. So that means that the funding you're talking about preserving, it's going to be, well, at risk, you could say, anyway. Of course, we live in a democracy, so, we can elect a government who will be tasked with a mandate of continuing that funding. And in fact, I think that would be a very sensible approach because we don't want a sudden cliff edge. We don't want to harm our economy by suddenly introducing extreme regulatory changes or cancelling subsidies without any warning. But
also, I would. I'm sorry. I would like.
We won't be in receipt of Objective 1 funding if we leave the EU, even if we stay in the single market, because it's a part of the EU. We won't be receiving this Objective 1 funding anyway.
I just wonder what the panel would think about this tying in with the proposed transition deal. Twisted Nuke or Toasted Russian.
I would.
Okay. Okay, you can.
Okay, well, it depends. Because we're going to have to do a lot of work to get ready to leave, obviously, because there's a lot of things that are being run in the EU that we should be running ourselves when we leave. So maybe we will. Now, if the government finds that they're going to need a bit of extra time to set up all the appropriate bodies, so for example, proper regulatory bodies, proper controls for customs, if there are any customs declarations necessary, which there probably will be. There probably won't be tariffs, but you'll still probably have to declare things through customs. So we may have to have additional time if the government needs it, so that they can properly set things up. And if that occurs, it makes sense that if obviously assuming the EU's consent, we would continue our current deal until we're ready to switch over to the new deal. Because otherwise, we're going to be making businesses switch multiple times. If, for example, at one point we go to a slightly different arrangement and then we keep changing arrangements until we get to our final arrangement, that's going to be irritating for business and that will increase red tape for them. So if it's necessary for the government to properly implement everything we need to be ready to leave, then it should be that there is a transition period. However, that should be time limited.
I think if Remain does end up winning, I would be if Leave ended up winning, that I'm gonna get to that. If Remain ended up winning, yeah, we would have to have some sort of transition period where we switch over to, first of all, paying higher EU fees to in general, just transitioning away. And if Leave does end up winning a majority in Parliament and a majority in this referendum, I will especially be more than I will be happy to cooperate with Leave voters to the best transition period that we can.
Why do we need a transition period if we're keeping the same deal? If we remain in, we're having the same deal we already have. What are we transitioning
to? Not particularly. There's some things that we would have to make sure. Like, it would definitely be a much smaller transition than, say, all the way from EU or Brexit. There are some differences between the EEA, but once again, I don't see anything vastly major.
If I may point out, if this is the time where I can point out, I think that a transition period is probably a good idea because it is difficult to create a whole bunch of new government agencies. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. You learn that in government, but I must say, there is going to need to be a limit on that, a limit on the transitional period, because we need to be out. We do need to be out. I would argue that we need to be out before individuals who will not accept either referendum result and want to drag us back in, get back into government. You see, if we're not out and the opposition members somehow enter our side of the house on Westminster, I would say they will be looking at going back in. So we need to make sure the transitional period is well defined and there is a date set as well. There needs to be a date set for actually being out.
How about we don't get partisan about this? I mean, this isn't about left or right. This is about wrong or right. We don't need to start dragging people through the muck with party political, because this isn't about what party's in government. It's about the best possible deal for Britain. The best possible deal for Britain is when we're outside of the single market.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't believe that will be possible that will be possible in the future if
Yeah.
the opposition gets in. I don't believe that's going to be possible.
Toast, I think
Ultimately,
Zuko's trying to say something.
I think Post is actually being a bit too partisan for my liking here, but still, I do think that parties do have a large role to play in this, considering their platforms. If you're in a party and that party supports a specific stance, Brexit, then there are going to be issues going around here because of the technicalities of this. Because the more of a, let's say, party blue to exit wants to exit the European Union through a hard Brexit, while the red party doesn't want to, and the red party wins a majority of seats logically. Because if you analyze this situation, there would be the red party would be favored, regardless of what happened in the referendum, to do whatever they wished. Simple fact here.
Well, Zukov's right. No parliament can bind another. That's a basic part of our constitutional setup. So Zukov, enjoy it while it lasts, but I'm going to say you're right here.
Oh, God really has descended.
So our next question tonight comes from a Twitter user, Niall from Oma, who asks, was the Unlock Britain campaign right to place sleeve slogans on the foil peace bridge? Was up 008?
Well, no, it wasn't, because there is a delicate peace in Northern Ireland, and that bridge was built as a symbol or a gesture to unite the two communities that have been, let's be real about this, at civil war for the past 30 years at least. To politicise that bridge is a gross misjudgment of the situation in Northern Ireland, and it shows their disdain and a distaste to the people of Northern Ireland, and I for one am very, very upset that...
Can I
just
come in?
Hold off. You've got to let What's Up finish her statement.
So what we should be doing is campaigning, yes. What we shouldn't be doing is using a piece of architecture that was built as a gesture to unite two communities as a place to sling mud. This is something that should not be allowed to happen, and I condemn it. I absolutely condemn it.
What's up? How patronising can you be? How patronising can you be when you suggest to the people of Northern Ireland that the only thing keeping the peace is a bridge? Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. How insulting. How insulting.
No, I won't let you say that, because that's not exactly what I was saying. I was saying it's a gesture and a symbol of peace, and that it's something that's sacred. I did not say that's the only thing.
We shouldn't have done it.
Good Friday. No, it should not have been done. And
yes, I agree.
I refuse.
It was a mistake. We apologise. We didn't mean to offend sensitivities, but the implication that we're going to restart the Troubles, how patronising. Northern Ireland has moved on from the Troubles. And to diminish that progress, to diminish laying down arms, to diminish both communities coming together and living in peace, that's disgusting.
It's not disgusting.
That is an achievement of the Northern Irish people.
Hold on. Okay.
An achievement of a bridge.
Okay.
No, it's politicising that bridge.
I agree. It was a mistake. We shouldn't have done it.
You shouldn't have done it. No,
yes, I agree.
No.
We shouldn't have done it. It was a mistake.
It's better to never have done it. We
can't do anything about that. We've apologised.
You shouldn't have done it.
It was a mistake.
Okay.
But blowing this into a huge thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, no. I actually partly agree with Nuke here. This referendum is this is bad conduct, and saying apologies. There are limits to this. I don't think that just saying apologies can be enough. However, this campaign once again isn't about this isn't about just this isn't about some campaign putting some guy who probably wasn't even approved by leadership. I don't know the exact circumstances under which that happened. Put leave posters in these symbolic sacred places. No, this is about what is the best for the future for the people of the United Kingdom, and I want to avoid the mudslinging here. I really do. I don't like the fact that we have.
Let me finish.
I'd like to make a point, please. We on the Leave camp, firstly, I am going to agree that it was not a good. It was good to do. It was insensitive, and it shouldn't have occurred. However, I must say that, and as the letter that came to the Leave camp that many of us signed before we were no longer allowed to access it, it is not representative and does not represent the Leave camp as a whole. And if we all recognise that and agree that it was something that is reprehensible and shouldn't have occurred and isn't representative of the Leave camp, I believe that's something we can all agree on, because that's even what the letter said. The letter that was delivered to the Conservative Party and delivered to the Leave camp.
Yeah, I don't.
What you fail to understand is that Northern Ireland is made up of two distinct groups of people. Yes, these people have been at civil war with each other, and this bridge is part of trying to harmonise people. It's something that people can say, yes, it's bringing the two communities together, because it links one community to another. They've still got peace walls, for Christ's sake. This is because...
You're talking to nuclear myself.
Okay, hold on.
All of you,
can I
think
just...
you are completely insensitive to
What have I said? What did I say that was wrong?
All of you, but you're part of the campaign that did it.
Okay, I'm going to repeat this.
It's not representative of the campaign.
Listening. So
the first
we accept
minister...
it was a mistake. We accept it was a mistake. It shouldn't have been done.
Mark, we have to admit this is okay.
Okay, Emma, I'm going to say this once more because you haven't listened so far. We accept it was a mistake. It was not correct to do it. However, I do understand the motivation. I expect it was nothing to do with the Peace Bridge's historical significance, but its local significance. For example, in my constituency, a similar lighting grid was installed on the Angel of the North, which is in Tyneside. And I understand where this came from, but stop condescending to the Irish people and pretending that the only thing that's keeping them from lobbing Molotovs at each other is a bridge. It's not. Northern Ireland has made real progress. Both communities have laid down their arms. The fighting has ended. A bridge isn't going to stop that. What is going to stop that is people realising that fighting was pointless, that dividing themselves was pointless, and that bloodshed in Northern Ireland is over. Yes, it was a mistake to campaign on that bridge, but this is not going to bring back the Troubles. Have a little realism.
I didn't say it was.
All right. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I speak?
Zuko, if you can talk, and then I'll go after Emma, because I'd like to just make sure that...
Yeah, I really, okay, I'm firstly, this is, they haven't, I'm trying to give the people, especially the leadership of the Leave campaign, the benefit of the doubt. Because here's the thing: I don't think this is representative of the Leave campaign. What's representative of the Leave campaign is the ideas and platform they put forward, which is what we are supposed to be debating. I don't understand why this is such a big issue that we have to include it alongside literal economic consequences.
Wow.
Can I come in, please? I'd like to question. Emma, I did say to you that I agreed it was reprehensible. I want to know what was wrong with my statement, in your view. I agreed it was reprehensible, and even the First Minister, if I recall correctly, or at least the head of Sinn Féin, told us that it was in the letter that was delivered to the Conservative Party, it was delivered to CCHQ and the Leave camp headquarters, said it wasn't representative of the campaign or the campaign as a whole. Now, so you guys recognise that, and yet on here I'm being accused of orchestrating this or something like that. Please explain that to me.
That's really weird.
I'd like that to be.
I just think you're
like
guilty by implication of the fact that you're part of the campaign.
Oh no, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. You're the only person in the Remain campaign.
I don't care if I'm the only person. This is what I believe, and I'm going to tell you what I believe because
It's ridiculous. And I don't think people at home should have to, I think people at home should hear the facts about the Leave camp's official stance on this.
Maybe they should hear the fact that they don't understand Northern Ireland and they're trying to campaign in Northern Ireland. They don't understand the bloody place.
It's not the Leave camp who doesn't understand. It's those people who did that, which I agree was not on.
I think it's very telling that when we start talking about the single market seriously, WhatsApp wants to deflect about Northern Ireland.
All right, so I want us to move on now from simply talking about the foil Peace Bridge specifically in this referendum campaign. What I want us to talk about now is the challenges and the potential opportunities that either leaving or remaining in the single market would have on Northern Ireland?
Well, of course, the whole of the United Kingdom will be affected by leaving the EEA. Leaving the EEA. That's the whole point of leaving the EEA. Now, of course, there are technical problems. There are going to be technical problems with even staying in the EEA. But let's get real here. There are borders in the world, with the EU especially, where they are completely seamless. And there is already massive regulatory divergence between North and South. Admittedly, there are things that are done on an all-Ireland basis, but as a general rule, there is massive regulatory equivalence between the North and South. I mean, for God's sake, they don't even have the same currency. So there are problems. Of course, there'll be problems. We have to make sure that the border is completely seamless, that there are no physical infrastructure, but it can be done. Modern technology can solve these problems. Just look at existing EU borders. Now, these are EU borders with, say, Norway, Sweden, or say with Germany, Switzerland. These are completely seamless borders. And this is achieved with modern technology. Can I just finish? Can I just finish? Oh, yeah, but can I just finish? Can I just finish? Okay. Well, yes. Well, let's think about something. What may I? Okay. Why? Let's consider something. What is the necessity for border checks? Why do we need border checks? And the answer is to control customs, to control items moving from north to south. So we need, of course, there may be customs duties. We don't know. It depends what the EU wants. We'd prefer there to be completely seamless customs duty. But the point is that even if we stay in the EEA, that won't affect customs, because customs is a part of the customs union, which we're leaving anyway. So actually, the single market won't make any difference, because the single market is about regulation. It's not about customs duty. So if there's going to be a hard border, which there doesn't need to be, because technology can solve these problems. There are technologies like car license plate recognition cameras. And instead of having checks at the border, we could have checks at warehouses on north and south. All of these problems have solutions, but staying in the single market won't change any of the issues. So of course, we have to find solutions to these problems, but the single market is irrelevant.
I just don't understand how you think leaving the single market isn't a big deal to Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland are actually so intertwined with each other that some people do their weekly shopping in Northern Ireland. In Ireland, sorry. I know Jerry, personally, who goes and gets his petrol from Ireland. Customs, yes. Okay, Ireland, sorry, Dylan. He gets it from Ireland. Okay? So, okay, no customs border, fine. But I think that for these two parts of these two places to work seamlessly, they need to remain in the single market. Remain with that. Because in order to trade easily, it's better for Northern Ireland to stay within the single market.
Why?
What about when we have the trade deal?
Why? You can't tell me why. What's the answer?
This trade deal that you're predicting in your crystal ball.
That will occur.
Well, when
explain why. Explain why. Tell us why.
Why?
Yes, why?
Why not?
Actual reasons why, not just because you say so.
You can't just say why not. That's not the argument. You can't just be like, why not? You have to actually talk about, the points that we've discussed about the trade deficit, which will give us this free trade deal, about the fact that we are going to have to adopt so much of Brussels law. Please just say why.
Okay. Right. So
can I mention, after Emma's done, can I mention something about this subject?
So should it stay? Because it would make things a lot easier for Northern Ireland.
Why?
For trading between the two places.
Why?
Well, how?
I'm just asserting why. For what reason will this make a difference when actually the real barriers, if there are any, are going to be from customs, which we're leaving the customs union anyway? What does the single market have to do with it?
Exactly. But with leaving the single market, you leave the customs union afterwards.
Well, we're leaving the customs union anyway. So why are you trying to say that staying in the single market will affect it? It won't.
Well, it will, because it will help try and keep
It
us
won't.
in the customs union.
We won't
We're
be
not-
in the
we're
customs
leaving the
union.
customs
We're
union.
leaving the
We will
customs
be
union.
leaving the
What's up?
customs
Keep
union.
up.
We will be leaving the customs union. If we stay in the
Also,
single market, we won't.
Also, I believe
No,
can
that's
be
not how it works. The single market and the customs union are different. Turkey is a member of the single market, the customs union. It's not a member of the single market. Norway is a member of the single market. It's not a member of the customs union. These two are not the same thing. Please check your facts. This is
Okay.
basic stuff.
Also, I would also like to talk about Northern Ireland benefits from EU funding. Northern. Oh wait, was this? Did the question also include a Northern Ireland benefiting from EU funding, or was it just? All right. According to House of Commons Library, it was expected around 1,200 million. I mean, 1,200 million euros in EU regional it was expected to receive 1,200 million euros in EU regional policy funding from 2014. I was wondering how the Leave camp is going.
Well, for a start, EU funding. May I? Okay. So, again, like I've already said, Objective 1 funding is not going to be retained by staying in the EEA because Objective 1 funding is for EU member states. So, Norway doesn't receive Objective 1 funding, for example. So, actually, regardless of how we vote, Objective 1 funding will be within, well, the money that would be spent will be within the competence of the British government. Now, what we can do is very time being just say, fine, we'll continue funding as is. And that's what we should be doing because we want to be very careful about how we change. Because we don't want to pull the rug out from under business, which is why for the time being, we can simply say, we're giving more to the EU than we're getting in terms of funding anyway. So what we'll do is we'll just use the money that we're already sending to pay for our subsidies. In fact, we can increase them if we wanted, because we'll be keeping our membership fee. So if we wanted to, we could actually make the funding bigger. But for the time being, we'll keep it exactly where it is, and then we'll still have a tidy profit from not paying EU membership.
Something you neglect to mention, though, is that there's a divorce bill that actually is, yes, there is a potential divorce bill.
Who says so?
The EU can ask.
No, they can't. Okay. Article 50 clearly states that upon leaving, all of our rights and obligations as an EU member cease. That includes EU funding. Well, what we should be doing really is saying to the EU, fine, we'll continue until 2021 paying because that's what we've already agreed to. But beyond that,
we have, and that until 2021 we are still paying.
No,
so
there's nothing that stops us doing that. That's just a nice thing to do. Okay, Article 50 clearly states our rights and obligations end.
In that short, I'm going to continue to talk. In that short term, we're going to be paying EU membership fee and also giving money to the disadvantaged parts of the country. So we're going to be spending more money.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
We're not going to keep paying.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
There's this fantasy that we have to keep paying. Okay. I'm going to say this once more. Article 50 clearly states our rights and obligations end as we leave the EU. We do not have to keep paying.
We made a commitment to the EU budget. It would be wrong to withdraw the funding from disadvantaged parts of the UK to actually say, no, we're not going to pay our commitment. That would make us a bad neighbour. It would actually weaken our negotiating hand in the Brexit negotiations. So what you're saying is rubbish. You might say that's our
we can guarantee up till 2021.
Don't talk over me. Please do not talk over me.
That was successful.
Yeah. Ready? 15 seconds. 15 seconds. I'm sorry, David. Right. So it would be wrong. It would be absolutely wrong to say no to obligations. We're going to honour our obligations at home. What you're saying is how dare you say our obligations are finished. No, do not say that. Do not mislead people and again accuse people of misleading people. Thank you very much.
Read the.
So I wonder, either a leave or a remain vote. Britain wakes up, finds out the result. What happens next?
Okay, well, day one, this is what we do. Day one, we issue a unilateral, complete guarantee that under no circumstances will anyone who has come here legally under the EU regime be forced to leave. That is day one. We need to provide absolute certainty to people who have made their life here and who are welcome contributors. So I would propose that the government start By complete guarantee, under no circumstances will legal EU migrants be evicted. That's step one. Then what we do is we trigger Article 50. That's the formal process that causes us to begin leaving the EU. So once we've triggered Article 50, we begin a 2-year negotiation period. During that period, we hammer out what our new deal is going to be. And the government will be able to say, look, we've got the mandate of the people in our country to do that. So that is what the course of action is. Step 1, complete guarantee no one will be thrown out of the country. Step 2, trigger Article 50. Step 3, negotiate it. And step 4, move on with our lives.
Well, we implement what the people are. That's all we do. We implement what the people ask. We had a referendum on the issue. Sorry, we're having a referendum on the issue. We will then vote. We will then put the relevant legislation in place, and then the House of Commons should vote the way the referendum went, hopefully, and that's how it should go. We should respect how the referendum result went.
And how would you see negotiations going with the European Union after the referendum?
Well, after the single market referendum?
Yes.
Well, I think if we vote to leave the single market, that it will upset the EU, because obviously they want us to stay in the European Union. They want to stay in the single market. So I feel that it will leave a sour taste in the mouths of the negotiators on behalf of the EU, and I think that hopefully we shall see a Remain vote on Thursday.
I agree, but basically with what Nuke said, I'd like to express my surprise, however, for what the Countess said, saying that, which sounded to me like a commitment to vote the way the referendum goes. That's what it sounded like to me. Can you confirm that, Countess? Excellent. Finally, we have some semblance of democracy from the other camp. Excellent, thank you. So I agree with partially what Nuke said. Well, pretty much exactly what Nuke said. We need to issue that statement saying anybody who's come here legally is not going to be like kicked out for pretty much any reason unless they commit a crime, obviously. But then we need to trigger Article 50, and then we need to get on with our lives and we'll just like commence government under an independent country, get some trade deals. I suspect the trade minister will be pretty busy, and let's sort out this country, get all the problems fixed, get people out of poverty, get business going, get people employed. It's what we want. It's what will happen if the Leave camp wins. That's what's going to happen if we leave the single market. We're just going to have a better place for everybody. And well, just as probably the last speech, thank you very much for hosting this, and it's been really enjoyable.
It'll be nice for the trade minister to have something to do for change.
I appreciate the comments from Toast in Russian, and I'm just going to bring in the last comment of the evening. I'm going to bring in Zukov236.
All right. Thank you. In my view, is the question asking if the referendum turns.
Regardless if it's leave or remain,
in the Remain camp wish, or what exactly? I'm a bit confused.
Regardless if it's leave or remain, what should happen after referendum? So, say in the instance it was remain, or the instance it was leave.
So a leave vote. I would say that the people that MPs should definitely pay attention. Because right now there is a pro Remain majority for a single market in Parliament. I think definitely they should pay attention to this and realize that their re-election, because if they try to go against the will of the people, because this is a representative democracy, but we will be able to cooperate on this if the referendum ends up leave. I'll try my best to cooperate with people in the Leave camp. Should I get I'll try I'll try to get everyone else in my camp to cooperate the best we can to ensure the best deals that we can get out of the EU. Out of the if it ends up Remain, I would, as a show of good faith, I would try not to not in my opinion, I think it would be best not to make a major action until we get a firm mandate from the general election as well. If it ends up if a referendum ends up remain, and the general election returns once again a majority of pro Remain MPs, I think then only should we start this process.
And I think that means we've now run out of time. Sadly, this single market episode special of the Question Time has come to an end. I know it's gutting, but I want to say thank you to all of our panel here tonight, and to, of course, all of the audience in here or watching at home. And we hope that, regardless of how you intend to vote on Thursday, these panelists have been helpful for you to make up your mind and think about what will happen come Friday. So this has been us in London, and thank you very much.